So the purpose of this video is to walk through what I'm calling phase 2 of the loan modification review process, otherwise referred to as the underwriting process, just to help borrowers or homeowners out there understand what they can kind of expect once they've made it through phase 1. So if you're at the very beginning of the loan modification process, you're going to watch the videos about phase 1. It talks a lot more about the documents. This video goes into kind of phase 2 and what to expect once you get to the underwriting phase. If you're already a subscriber, good to see you guys. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe and like the video below. That's the best way that we can all kind of collectively get the information needed to other homeowners who need help. So after you've gone through document collection with your loan modification review, the golden ticket phrase you want to hear is that your file has been deemed complete. That's how the lenders say it. They call it a complete package, or they tell you it's been deemed complete. The moment that they deem a package complete, they typically transition a file from the document processor to an underwriter. An underwriter means they're going to be actually completing the underwriting process. The underwriting process entails kind of like 3 major things. Number 1, they're looking at the valuation of your home. So they're completing what's called a broker's price opinion, or a BPO, or a full appraisal, depending on who your investor is. The value of the home matters in a loan modification because the lender is trying to make a determination as to whether a loan modification will be financially beneficial for them over time. They want to see whether you have equity in the property, whether you're underwater, just what the general condition and value of the home is. The second thing the underwriters are doing is they're looking at a title report. As you know, a title report shows all of the encumbrances that are attached to the home. That just means any mortgages, deeds of trust, liens. Liens mean like credit card judgments that have become liens, or utility liens, child support liens, anything that's attached to the home, federal tax liens, state liens, anything that gets attached shows up on a title report. And so as part of the loan modification process, lenders do look at the title report, as some investors have requirements that there must be clear title or only a second mortgage on title in order to give a loan modification. So if you need more information about whether your specific investor has a title report requirement, that'll be something you'll want to talk to an attorney in your state about. But I just wanted to give that information to let you know that's part of what the underwriters are doing. And then the third main thing that the underwriters are doing is they're looking at your investor, you're looking at the investor guidelines, and then they're seeing if they can come up with an affordable modified payment. The factors that go into these things just generally are your debt to income ratios, meaning how you presented your expenses, how you presented your income, whether a modified payment looks affordable for you, unaffordable for you, or so affordable for you that they can give you a high repayment plan. If you want more information on the specific debt to income ratios that they're kind of looking at and how you can help yourself, there's a different video posted about debt to income ratios, otherwise abbreviated as DTIs, but that is part of the underwriting process. Underwriters also look at whether you've had any prior modifications. They look at when you had those modifications, when you defaulted on those modifications, what happened. Some investors limit the number of modifications that a homeowner can have for the life of the loan. Some investors have limitations for a certain amount of time. So, for FHA, you can only have 1 modification for every 24 months. So if that's something that applies to you, they look at those kind of specific investor restrictions. And then they look to see whether there's any streamlined programs available to put you in. There's more information about that somewhere else, but I'm just trying to generally give a sense of that's what underwriting is. They're looking at your income, they're looking at your expenses, they're looking at any past workout attempts that you've gone through, the value of your home, and the title report. So once your file is deemed complete and moved to underwriting, it starts this review process that should last for 30 days. So, investor guidelines say once a package is deemed complete, underwriters have to produce a decision within 30 days. So that should kind of be the time frame that you have thinking about in your mind. Now, in reality, that doesn't always mean that they will produce a decision within 30 days. It just means that's what they're required to do. And so as a borrower, as a homeowner who's going through this process, it's kind of up to you to do everything you can during this underwriting phase of the loan modification review process to make sure you're being responsible for yourself and for pushing them forward as quickly as possible. And so I'm just going to go through a few things that I recommend you do when you know you're in this phase 2 phase of the loan modification review process. So number one is don't assume that document collection is necessarily over. So even though your package has been labeled complete and it's been moved to underwriting, the underwriters still could ask for additional items, or they could have additional clarifying questions. So the document processors on the front end, they're really just trying to upload particular documents to the requirement section, and then they send it forward. They're not reviewing the content or the substance of the documents. So this part of the process is where the underwriters really look in detail about what you're submitting, and then they might have questions. So a common one we see is document processors in phase one will collect 30 days of pay stubs. They mark it complete, the file moves to underwriting. Underwriting then sees something unusual on a pay stub, like a bonus or a commission or some sort of extended sick leave, and then they have a question about it. They'll want to know, is that a consistent type of income? Is it one-off? Something like that. And then the underwriter will actually mark the file with the question or the thing that they need. So the worst thing you can do for yourself is to get your file deemed complete and then stop calling and following up, because underwriters will ask questions. They will need additional documents. And when that happens, you want to be right there on the phone, getting those requests as soon as they come in so you can push them back to the lender as fast as possible. So number one, don't assume that the document collection process is over. Take it upon yourself to call in regularly. Number two, you're going to want to make sure that you're asking the right questions when you call in. So I'm just going to go through how these questions can be phrased. When you speak to a customer service representative, they'll tell you very generally, your file is in review or your file is in with underwriting. You want to then say back to them like, great, thank you so much. And then you're going to want to say, what date was the file last touched? And what you're looking for are the touch points that the underwriters make on the file. Every time they do something, whether it's order the title report or look at the BPO or ask a question to someone or reach out to the investor for clarification, whatever they're doing, they have to notate the file. And so asking when a file was touched by an underwriter gives you a really good idea as to whether your file is being worked. If the customer service representative can produce a touch date or a touch point or a date that they can give you when the file was worked, and it's within this 30-day time frame, you can be really assured that they are working the file, they are doing what they're supposed to do. The general rule that I use is if more than 7 business days have passed and a file has not been touched, that's typically when something might be lost in the shuffle or might need a little bit more attention. And there's a separate video that's going to be posted about escalations, but essentially if 7 business days pass and when you ask what day they've touched the file, if you're not getting a good response, you might want to look at opening an escalation. The other thing you want to ask, of course, is what we went over. Are there any missing documents? Now, I always tell all borrowers, ask this question every time you call. Don't assume that the customer service representative is going to tell you directly, oh, also, by the way, there's missing documents. A lot of times customer service representatives for lenders have to go to a different screen to see what missing documents there are. So if you call in and you're like, hey, I need an update on my file, the customer service representative might tell you it was last touched, 2 days ago, it's in underwriting, it's going well. And then you still need to ask the follow-up question, are there any missing documents? So that they flip over to that screen that tells them whether there's anything missing. Don't expect that customer service representatives will tell you everything you need to know. They often can't see it on the screen, or they just are a little bit not wanting to give the information, or they just don't know where to look for it. So it's your job to make sure you ask every time if there's any missing documents. The other thing you want to ask is this file on track for a decision within 30 days? They will be able to give you an answer to that. They'll be able to read the underwriter's notes. Typically, they'll just say yes, but it's good for you to ask that because a record of your conversation with the lender gets put into the file. And so if you're constantly asking, are you on track? Are you on track? Are you on track? And the lender is saying yes, 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 yes. If they miss that 30-day deadline to produce a response, and then you end up having to go to a supervisor or having to open an escalation, it'll be really beneficial for you to have those notes in there and be able to say to a supervisor, hey, I asked 5 times if this was on track. And then the supervisor will be kind of more inclined to prioritize your file at that point because you've been asking the right questions and getting the right things notated to the account. And then the last question you always want to ask is, obvious one, right? Has a decision been made yet? you can't assume that they're going to be able to just right up front tell you. Sometimes customer service representatives, again, they have to flip to a different screen. And so decisions can be made early, and sometimes customer service representatives have to kind of look deeper into the file in order to know if a decision has been made. So you always want to just ask them directly, can you check to see if a decision has been made? If you're early in that 30-day time frame, it's very likely that they're going to say no, but they should be able to tell you that the underwriters are touching the file and working on it. So, those are the questions you want to ask. Just to recap them real quick. When was the file last touched? What are the missing documents? Are we on track for a decision in 30 days? And then has there been a decision made? If you can get those 4 questions on a regular loop for updates, you should have a pretty good ability to make sure your file is actually moving forward. So that's phase 2. There's going to be other videos posted about the actual decisions that they issue and kind of what you need to do at that point. But the purpose of this video is once you get your documents complete, you are still responsible for getting your decision back on your loan. Lenders are so overworked, they're so overburdened. It is possible your file might just sit there. And then I'm going to just say the last thing you always want to be asking a lender, and this applies to phase 1, phase 2, anything you're doing. So you want to keep updated on the foreclosure activity on the loan. So after you ask all your questions about your loan mod, always say, is there any active foreclosure activity showing on the loan? If the lender says yes, then you need to figure out, depending on what state you're in, where you're at on the timeline and what you need to do. But you always want to make sure that if you're in default and you're in a modification review, that you're keeping updated as to the foreclosure status on the loan. Good luck.